So hello everybody, this is EP1024 and welcome to episode 17 of our Dynamic Factory Let's Play. So during the break I realigned all these stations so that they're now correctly lined up, which is much better. I also realized that when you die you leave your body on the ground. So I think my body was like just next to this train stop here, so I actually managed to get back all the items that I had lost from dying, so that was nice. Yep, and that's pretty much all I did during the break, so not much. But there is a very big announcement, and it is in fact part of the name of this episode, I'm guessing. It's what I plan to name it. And that is that I've actually made a new mod, and we're going to be using that mod in this playthrough. That's the Dynamic Science mod. Now to explain how this mod works, I'm going to go to our testing world. So let's head over to the testing world. So, first thing I'm going to do, actually, I've already done it, is I have used these remote cores, which are basically debugging methods for me to see what it's doing, and I've enabled everything. And if we go to our intermediate products page, you notice we have 3 different versions of blue science and 2 different versions of military science. Now this mod's still a work in progress, so there's still more to come. These are just the 2 that I've dealt with at the moment, and their recipes are subject to change. So, in fact, if we look up here, here are our 5 sciences, the 2 military and the 3 blue. Well, look, here's a normal science pack, using 1 piercing, 1 grenade and 1 gun turret. And here's a new military science pack that uses 2 firearm, 1 gate and 1 gun turret. And if we look at the blue, we've got the normal blue with its 1 advanced circuit, 1 engine unit, and 1 electric mining drill. We've got this one which requires 2 electric engine units, 2 normal, more basic electronic circuits, and 5 petroleum gas. I'm probably going to change that to be a bit more petroleum gas. And Science Pack 3 requires a sulfur, 2 fast inserters, and a pump. Now the reason I've chosen these recipes, this is kind of balanced at the moment around basic mode, so they're probably going to change a lot for expensive mode. As you can see, if you look at the, here's the basic that uses about 34 iron ore, 10 copper, 20 petroleum. This one uses, I worked out 30 lubricant was about 15 petroleum, if you instead crack it down. So that's about 20 petroleum, 24 iron, so a bit less iron, 9 copper, so less copper. But I think it's slightly more on the petroleum, that's why it is like that. It might actually take longer. No, it takes the same time. And this one is 15 petroleum, 15 water, which is basically free, 31 iron and 9 copper. So it's pretty close to the same price too. And so that's what these recipes are all balanced around. They're trying to be a very similar price. So 54, 15, 10, and this one is 60, 13, and 10 stone. But it does take 30 seconds longer. So I think, is it not cheaper? I thought I was making it cheaper. I'm probably going to take a firearm magazine off that. That would save 15 seconds and 4 iron. And that would make that a nicer price. They also take different times to create. So you're all probably thinking now, well, what does having multiple science pack recipes do? That seems kind of pointless. Well, we turn this on to short mode. Normally it's on long mode, which makes it cycle every hour. Short makes it every minute. And in fact, I'll turn on tick as well. There we go. You'll see on these assembly machines, certain ones have turned off. And if we go to our recipes, you'll see that there's only 2. 1 science and 1 military. It's the normal military and it seems to be the normal science. Pack 3, yep. No, that's a different one. That's the second version. Yep, that are enabled. And if we speed the game up, in about 10 seconds you'll notice, there we go, I've got a debug message telling me when it's changing, that now we've got the second military science and the third normal. Now it's changed again to the first of each. And so in 10 seconds it'll change to the second of each, and then in another 10 seconds this will go back to the first and this will go to the third. And that's what they'll do constantly throughout the game. So the plan is that, let's go back to normal speed. Put this on long mode so it's not constantly changing anymore. Long just changes every hour, which is the default. So the plan is that there will be one recipe for science pack 1s and 2s, because they're needed to get to combinators. And so, because combinators unlock the crafting combinator, which is recommended if you're using dynamic science, I didn't want to have to change how red or green science packs work. So after that, we've got military science pack, of which there will be 2 recipes. We'll have science pack 3s, of which there will be 3 recipes. Production science packs will have 5 recipes. High-tech science packs will have 7 different recipes. And satellites, because instead of changing the recipe in the... It's a rocket launch. What's it? Rocket silo, that's its actual name. Instead of changing the recipe, the rocket silo needs to... because you can change what you launch and what it gives you. Instead of changing that, I'm going to change the satellite recipe, so there will be 11 different recipes for satellites. And this will be kind of the best one to change because it's the last tech, so it's giving me the most options on what to give it, and it has 6 ingredients. So as you progress through the game, not only are you going to have, you know, more complex science packs, but there's also going to be more different variations to the science packs that are going to exist. And so the factory will need to be dynamic, because, you know, if at the moment I've got the first version of... No, actually I've only got the first version of blue. So if I just had the normal military science pack assembling machines, as you can see, I've got this telling it to make the normal military science packs. It's not actually making anything because that's not enabled. And so all of those machines would be offline until, you know, it cycles around another hour, and then because there's only 2, it would switch back to that one. So this way, the factory kind of has to figure out, hey, we have to make different products to make these science packs, because all of a sudden we're not needing red ammo. What's its actual name? I think it's piercing, yeah. We don't need piercing ammo rounds, we now need firearm magazines, so stop making them into piercing rounds. And we need gates instead of grenades. So we should start actually, you know, processing some stone and stop moving coal and making grenades, but instead making gates. So that was the idea there. Now the reason why there's 2, 3, 5, 7 and 11 is that they're all prime numbers. Which means that I calculated it takes about 10 days. I'll actually figure out exactly how long. 2 times 3 times 5 times 7 times 11. Divide that by 24. It takes... Or is that 100 days? It's 2,300 hours. Yeah, so it would take 96 days before all of these are back on the default recipes. Now that's all of them on the default recipe at the same time. So I don't think that, oh, you know, it's going to be ridiculous using this. It just means that if you've only got the default recipes, you've basically got to wait 96 days before all your crafting machines will actually be running at the same time. Now there is an annoyance with this way that enabling and disabling science packs works. And that is noticeable up here. You'll notice that none of these crafting machines have actually, assembling machines, have actually changed. And the reason behind that is that if you give it a recipe and then you disable it in a mod, Factorio doesn't change what an already set up assembling machine has. So while there's no way I can give an assembling machine... Why can't I? That's weird. There's no way I can give an assembling machine, say, this recipe that uses sulfur, because it's not in the list at the moment. The one that uses sulfur is still enabled here. That's why it's a high recommendation that you use this with the crafting combinators mod, because they will send the recipe to it every second, basically. So within a second of it being disabled, it will become disabled. And now here's something I have figured out you can do. So what you can do, if we go to, here we go, constant combinator, let's just get one of them. Now, here you'll see our science packs signals. They're for the normal science packs. And then there's this crafting combinator recipes, and this one has the signals for the different versions of crafting those recipe packs. So these are the added versions. They're over here. And the purple, gold, and satellites will also be down here. And the reason why they're here is that they're not actually items. They're just secondary recipes to make the same thing. This also has all the recipes for bottling, cracking, processing, and all that. So if you put a combinator with all three recipes for the blue science pack, for example, that's what this one has. That will actually set the assembling machine to whichever recipe is currently enabled. So that's an easy way to check that. And then what you can do is you can have a different crafting combinator reading the recipe, and it will read out the signal of which recipe is enabled. So with this little setup, I have these three lights. This one tells me that it's on version 1, version 2, version 3 of the blue science. So if we go back to short, and we speed the game up again, you'll notice every time this thing tells us that it changes, the light changes to the next one. And so with this little setup, we can actually see, we can programmatically tell which of these three options is currently enabled. So currently the third one's enabled. And so in our brain, what we can do is we can just have a setup like this for each type of crafting pack that changes. And that can be used as the signal to tell it, okay, this is what the current blue science signal is, this is what the current, great military science is, and so on. So yeah, that's dynamic science. Now, I want to turn that off. I haven't made the recipes for production gold or satellites yet. I'll make them, soon-ish. Definitely before we start using them. But I'll give you the offer if you want to think up some recipes, go ahead. The only requirements that they have is that a recipe cannot have a material needed in it that cannot be unlocked without having that science pack. So for example, if we go military science and here we go, the military tech tree. See, I was thinking of putting like laser turrets or, is that just grenade damage? There was another thing I was thinking, maybe landmines as a requirement to a military science pack, but because these require military science packs, that's not allowed. So that's really the only requirement on it, and I want the cost to be fairly even. They don't have to be super even. They don't have to be even in iron and copper consumption. So I'm thinking, especially with a high-tech science pack, it's really copper intensive. So that's nice. And the production one's fairly iron intensive. But, maybe one of them will be the opposite. So one production science pack will be very copper intensive and one high-tech science will be very iron intensive. And so suddenly, instead of having, what's that? That's about a 2-to-1 copper to iron ratio. You might go the other direction, and all your furnaces that were making copper no longer really needed, but you need even more furnaces making iron for the next hour, because you've got high-tech science packs that use up a lot of iron. So they don't need to be balanced on that, and time isn't too much of a factor. I generally, if it gets a lot more expensive than the base, I'll try to make sure that the time is less. But that's about it. So if you want to put up, hey, here's a good idea for a science pack, just these sort of items together, and if it balances out, sure, I'll put it in, and I'll give you a shout out for suggesting that. Of course, with satellites, because they give us white science, everything's allowed for them. And really, I want basically everything being used in this factory to make science. So, they've got 6 ingredients. Don't have to worry about being too realistic with it. Maybe the science satellite needs a couple of nukes because atomic bombs. Because why not? And atomic bombs are fun, and they're also very expensive. So what would that be? And, give it maybe 5 atomic bombs, because we need to defend it from, I don't know, hostile aliens out in space for one of them, just as a suggestion. And that means that, of course, our uranium-235 is now getting used up in science and stuff like that. Yeah, but that's basically the idea of the dynamic science mod. And that's the big change that's going to happen to our Let's Play, because now, there's a reason that we need this dynamic factory, because we are not going to be able to just use one single type of recipe for any of our science packs, except for red and green. And with that, I'll go back to our normal world. Okay, so now that we're back from the testing world, let's get started on today's episode. So with today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to make a couple more trains, because we've only got one for iron ore, which we really don't actually need a train for. Actually, no, we'll keep a train for iron ore. We'll keep a train for iron ore, copper ore, iron plates, iron gear wheels, and that should be enough, but we'll keep a 5th one just in case. So what we're going to want to do next is we're going to want to basically set up those 4 trains, because we've already got one of them here. And we're going to set it up so that when a train pulls up here, we'll read what it's got in its contents, and we'll send the trains that are storing those items over to it to give those items to, we'll fill those items into this train. Now there is actually one thing I want to change, quite possibly, with how these inserters are set up. I think I want to move them over to filter inserters, but I will do that in maybe later in this episode. The reason for that is, let's say a train comes over and it's got some iron plates and some iron gear wheels in it. And so we'll send over the iron plate train and the iron gear wheel train. And then when the iron plate train comes over here, we need to set all these filter inserters to basically move the iron plates across. And then the train will leave, and then the gear wheel train will come. It'll park up here, and then these inserters will be told, okay, now move across the gear wheels. So that's the one change I want to do to them. In fact, then we can probably use stack filter inserters if we want to go super fast. But had to park right in front of a pole. Let's start off getting ingredients that we need for multiple trains and setting up our extra trains. So we'll need, if we need 4 more trains, that's 6 more of these that we're going to need. So engine units. And steel. Hopefully we're not going to run too low on iron. So that's our 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's going to use a massive amount of iron to do all that. Does this give me a total raw? It doesn't give me iron ore. Okay, let's see how this is going. That all seems to be going fine. Now, yellow belts carry about 8 items per side. It would be 20 divided by 3. Yes, that's about 7 then. Yeah, 7 items per side, let's say. This would take, I think it takes 2 seconds, 3.5, so we'll say 4 seconds. Halve it because they're at twice speed, so that's 2 seconds to cook. So that means it could feed 14 furnaces per side. So we won't actually be able to feed all 16 per side, which is what we're saying here anyway. And we're not actually able to transport that many away. So might be worthwhile upgrading that furnace to red belts, just so we can get more throughput through it. So we'll need a splitter, we'll need a bunch of red belts. We're going to need need even more gear wheels. Okay, let's see how this goes for upgrading our iron furnace. There we go. So these are going to be twice as fast. We only need them. Should hopefully be far enough. So I want to get the red belt up this way sooner. We'll need another splitter. Yeah, only one more splitter is needed. So we're going to need another splitter over here. But then we won't be able to push a red belt worth of items in until this is all updated to a red belt, at least to this splitter here. So these are both being fed. That can push through twice as many items. Or we can use, actually. So we have so many yellow belts. There we go, we'll put, yep, 2 yellow belts worth of items in. Red belts work at twice the speed, so then we can feed that with the red belts. Let's see. Okay, the train's finished unloading. Cool, so hopefully that improves our throughput a little bit. It's not going to do too much just yet. Just still a bunch. So we've already got some steel plates, but I don't think that's going to be enough to make all our trains. Okay, well while we wait for all that to happen, wait for these to craft slowly. Head back over here. And we shall set up our trains. Okay, cool. So what we'll do is we want to read our train contents. And that will tell us what this train has inside it. Does it say that it killed me? Oh, I didn't know trains now told you that they killed people. Cool. That's new, so now I can see if there's one train that's constantly killing me. Hopefully I don't die anymore from trains. Where's my... there. So we're getting our input signal into this one. And what we're going to do is we're going to say each thing greater than 0, output it as 1. And so that's just telling us what this train contains. So this is then iron ore train. And we'll have... how much room will we have between trains? Oh, we'll have the next train there. That seems like a good spot. Are you within range? Yep. So here's where the next train can go, and we can put its thing there. In fact... like that. What are you missing? So you want some smart train stops, cider combinators, lights, constant combinator. Okay. That should be fine. So there we go. So we'll have 2 trains here. And what we'll want... yep. We'll want the outputs connected. Let's just get rid of this because be using circuit wires a lot more. Let's go that for the moment. Cool. So on this red wire, it will have basically a signal for every single train that we have in our waiting bay. So we know we have one iron ore train and that's it. Now it might also be useful, don't know how many trains there are, which is easy enough to get. We connect the constant combinator for the smart stop, we'll pass through our train at station signal, and we'll just connect that onto the same line. So this will tell us now, yep, we have one train here and it's an iron ore train. And so if I put down a second train, that should now, oh, you actually need to be updated. So copy that, copy that. Does that mean you're set to this? No, do that. Okay, good. So we've now got two trains on the storage bay line. This one and this one. And now you'll see, oh, I think I need to put this on automatic. Yep, there we go. It now says we have two trains, one of them contains iron ore. This one doesn't contain anything. Thought I had some fuel on me, but I don't. But that's okay. Now the last thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to connect this stop. Connect it to this pole here. We want to read these train contents. Signal is sent the unique number for that train. Do I want that? No. All I want to know is what this train has. Put that there. And that won't connect. Great. In that case, yeah, we'll put that there. We can run this not all the way over there, but probably halfway. Okay, so on the green line we'll have what the train at our waiting bay has, and the red line will have, not that red line, this red line here, we'll have what trains exist in our system. So let's bring this one over here, and we'll look at the circuit to correctly set this all up. So the thing we want to know is, do we have a train in our system, and is it the same as is a train in our system the same as the one that's waiting for stuff? Now, do we care how many there are? Actually, I think start with a memory cell, because we're going to need to remember some stuff. And we're going to clear the memory cell whenever everything is 0. Output of red. So that means that there's nothing waiting. If there's nothing waiting, we'll clear the memory cell. And yeah, that can connect in the red. Cool. So we've got this memory cell here, which we'll use, and it will be cleared whenever there's no train waiting. And when there is a train waiting, we need to check if any of our waiting trains are the same as it. We could do that by passing it through another one of these. So this will again reset it all to 1. Yep. We then connect our green line to this thing's input, and the red line will connect that up. So this will be adding the train that's waiting and what trains we have And this can check if anything is equal to 2. We can output all the, not everything, not for each thing equal to 2, output it as 1. So that will tell us currently nothing because we have nothing here, but if we had an iron train, it would be outputting an iron ore signal of 1. Let's put down a constant combinator, and this can be our train emulator. So iron ore 1, this is now no longer constantly being reset, and this is telling us, well, we have an iron ore train and we have an iron ore train in our storage. But we don't know how many we have. The question is, does it matter? At the moment, we'll say no. Eventually, we will say yes, most definitely. So what we'll do, we know we have an iron ore train. We know we need an iron ore train. Can I not run past combinators? Okay. So what these ones will do is basically the same thing here. They will say, yeah, they'll do the same thing as this one does. But they'll be reading from the train signal here. Where's your output? You go to there, so on the green line, to the input. So this has on its input signal what this train has and which train we know exists that we need. So this says this train is an iron ore train, and we know we have an iron ore train that we need. So if anything is 2, yeah, if anything is 2, output a single thing. What does this thing do? If train at stop is greater than 0. Okay. So in fact, output train at stop. Disconnect U. Because we no longer just care that there's a train there, we now care the train that is our train. And we can connect U up, and that should start moving this train. It should. What's going on here? That's, oh no, that's not getting a value. Anything is, oh, equal to 2. Of course. Why isn't it? Thank you. The train will go over there and it'll be back in a sec. Because there's no actual train over there. I'll just move this one so it's actually in the same spot. So that goes there, and that one goes there. Cool. So now I pretend that there's no train over there, and that's fine. Now the next thing we want to do is we'll want to... So we know that we've sent over our iron ore trains now. So we don't want them to be sent over again. Now, there's a few ways we can do this. But let's just do, for each signal we're getting through here. So this is each train we're about to send over. Multiply it by -1 should be good enough. Yeah, because there can only be one train waiting over there. Output it again. And feed it into this. Good. So we'll send off our iron train. At the same time, we'll change this memory cell so that it's got a iron signal of -1. isolate this. And add this to this input. Because we'll get our iron of -1 here, we want to isolate it because we need to connect it to the red side because we don't want to connect it to the green side. And then that will take it off this thing, so this won't be equal to 2 again. So let's see. Should make this -3, which is good enough. I mean, -1 would be the optimal, but -3 works just as well. It's just got to be not able to be 2. So there, now when a train pulls in, we'll be able to tell if that train already exists and send it off. Now what happens if that train doesn't exist? In that case we need to send one of our empty ones. So I need to think up a circuit that will send an empty one. Now of course we could send all the empty ones. That'd be an easy circuit to set up. But it'd also be quite wasteful because then, you know, instead of one train going off, a bunch of trains would go off. But if we want to just keep it simple for the moment, keep that. Yeah, turn that off now. Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll keep it simple for the moment. So in that case, we're getting a signal through here. Let's say iron plates. So you're getting 2 signals of 1. How do we know? Okay, if none of the signals are 0, so if everything does not equal 2, is what I meant to say, we'll output a red. So this will be outputting a red at the moment saying, we've got something here, but none of our trains have it. And, well actually no, we don't even know if we have something here, we just know that none of our trains have what's over there. So then what we need to do is we need to get this red signal. We need to get this green signal. We'll say if red's greater than 0, output no, if red is 0, we'll say output everything. Get a constant combinator. And then you get some more copper wires. Takes so long to craft. Connect you on the red line, set your red to -1. So your red will be 0 when this is outputting something, and you will output everything, which is basically what our trains have. So our train has iron plates. Then what we need to do is we need to send a new signal. So if you've got anything, output a green, why not? And then each of these will need to say, yeah, okay, I got it. Oh, we only need a green, so, how to test if we've only got a green signal? Ah, easy. Same way we test if there's a red signal. We will do, put it on the red line. Green of -1. So that means there's a green on the red line will be 0. Put this here. Everything must equal 0. You get green, which is what this train has. You get red, which is our green line. And so you're not going to be all equal to 0. And you can be the same. Put put that down here. Green from there, green from there, green from there. No, that signal. There we go. So we've got this train. We're getting no green signal because we've got a train there that we don't have. Well, the train that's there only contains items that none of our trains have at the moment. But this one currently has iron ore, so it's not sending out a signal. This one has nothing, so it is sending out a signal. But it also doesn't have any fuel. So let's go get it some fuel and some wagons. And we'll need to give it rails, but that should be fine. I can make 3 wagons for the moment. And lastly, we will want to... you're starting in the wrong direction. Put that there, so it at least can come back to where it's parked. 1, 2, 3. Cool, and it's so much faster because it's only got 3 wagons. And so it would now be filling up with iron plates if they were actually there. Cool, so that's our storage area updated now to deal with multiple different items. It's not an optimal solution yet, but I think it's better to at least have a sort of solution first, and we'll optimize it as we get around to it. And there we go, it's been now our 27th hour apparently of playing this game, and that means that our science packs have now changed. So we can see our military science packs are the second version and our blue science packs are the first. And so from now on, there's no way, well, I mean, I could cheat and enable them all, but we won't be doing that. So, as far as I'm concerned, there's no way for us to reliably know which science pack we're going to have to craft at any point in time. Which is good, that's exactly what I wanted. So this is Jacoby 1024. I think that will be where we'll end our episode. It looks like it's been going for about 40 minutes. And during the break, the only thing I'll really do is, upgrade this all to be red belts. So this line will be a red belt, this line here will be red, and this line here will be red, just so we can get even. Oh, and this whole section here will be red, just so we can get higher throughput. And what are we going to start working on next episode? Oh, and I'll set up all the trains, because that's just going to be the same thing, so you don't need to see that. So we'll have 5 trains down here. Are you still waiting? Why are you red? Ooh, because there's this train on that line. Okay, let's go fix that signal first. I need a chain signal. And normal signals are all we need. So the reason why this train isn't moving is because, actually if we go train blocks, pretty sure, there we go, rail blocks. So can we see that from the map? Yeah, here we go, that's even nicer. You can see this yellow block here. This train here is on it because there's no signal differentiating the top line from the second line. So this train wants to go into the yellow block, but this train here is on it. So what we're going to do, we're going to split up these 2 blocks. the only thing we care about, these can be normal signals, that'll work fine. As you can see, these two blocks are now separate. I knew that train wasn't going to hit me, but it's still, still got a fright out of me. And we're going to have a chain signal here. So the way chain signals work is that they'll only let a train in if it can leave the block. So a train's only allowed in this yellow block if it can leave it. And it can only leave it through this blue, or cyan, or the red block down here. And because both the cyan and red blocks have trains in them, and if we move these trees here, you can see the signal here is red and the other one that's here is red, but there's annoying trees in the way. Because there's a train down there. So no train that can enter the yellow block can leave it, and that's why that combo signal or chain signal is red. Okay, you can see these two are both red. But if one of them was green, which I could do just by separating this block out, you see this one's now green, so the combo's gone blue. And blue means there's at least one path out. Now that doesn't mean that the path the train's going to take is out, because if the train needs to go somewhere, and there's only one way to go there and that way is blocked, it's not going to enter. But there's a possibility the train could go through. Yeah, that's a quick signal tutorial. More likely when we get to more complex sort of signaling, I'll go through it more. This is pretty simple stuff at the moment. But yeah. So I'll just finish off those trains and finish off those red belts, and then when we'll be back, we'll be ready to actually start producing stuff in all these production bays and start working on our dynamic part of our train-fed factory. So this is Jack B1024 signing off. Have a good day.